as promised, a reading from Garkain, the first book in the Uluru Legacy series. Coming home. Amelia stared at the man in the seat next to her, watching him breathe deeply into dreamless sleep as they flew over the Pacific Ocean on their way back to the States. She would be going home to tie up loose ends and delete her former life completely. Roan would be seeing the States for the first time, both of them making the most of their 3 months before returning to a life that would be a huge commitment for them. A life that she never dreamed of, but now she couldn't imagine any other way. She still pondered the events of the last few weeks and their future to come, how they would unite two separate worlds as one, how they would lead a new community into the future, reshaping it and bringing fresh ideas to an archaic society. For now, though, she tried to push the thoughts from her mind. This was their time together now, their last 3 months of freedom. Amelia brushed the hair from Roan's forehead as she watched him for a while. It was hard for her to completely process the events that led up to this moment. Only a few months ago, she'd been a girl with no family, and now she was a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, and in December, she'd be a wife. 25 years of wondering and questions, imagining the whys, searching on the internet for a possible connection, taking the DNA test 2 years ago and signing up for the online registry, bouncing from foster home to home, never finding a place to fit in. If she'd only known, if she only had a clue what awaited her. The 2 weeks she spent with the Uluru colony, or just the colony as they called it, had changed her in ways she never imagined were possible. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually, she was, quite honestly, a completely different person. The things she had seen and experienced defied explanation for anyone outside their community. She had been unbound, no longer tethered by human rules or laws. What she was now must remain a secret to anyone outside of their hidden world. No one could ever know, not her friends or family in the States, no one. It was safest that way. So much had happened in such a short time. She'd met her family and fallen in love with the country, was intrigued by the culture of her people, and made the decision to accept a proposition that would change everything. She had agreed to things she never thought she would, become something she never thought existed, and found a life worth dying for. Only 3 months, she thought sadly. She had such a short time to sever all ties with her former life, adopted family and friends, and return back home to her duty and her future. Something she was looking forward to. They were her family now, the colony. Michelle, Robert, and Ambrose, Anatoly and Phoebe, and of course Roan. This was the life that she had chosen and the reason for her birth. The experiment of her adoption had been successful, and it was time for her to take up her position as a leader. For now, she had to make the most of her time, putting in her notice at work and selling the home she'd worked so hard to buy. She decided to tell everyone that she'd taken a job in Australia. She would tell them that she needed a change of scenery, a fresh start. She would promise to keep in touch. The less they knew, the better. She'd fed just before getting on the plane. She made sure to see to that before the long flight. But she was starting to get hungry again, and peanuts wouldn't do it for her. She needed a mid-flight snack, one that wasn't on the menu. With just over 6 hours left, one good meal should hold her over until she landed. She looked at Roan again, asleep next to her. She pressed the call button on her seat as a friendly flight attendant came quickly to see what she needed. First class did indeed have its perks. Amelia stared at her for a moment, then followed the attendant into the bathroom. Her mouth was already burning, her gums tearing as she tasted her own blood for a moment. Closing the door to the spacious restroom, the attendant held out her arm. No words were exchanged, no fuss, and no drama. Amelia's double set of fangs emerged as she punctured the cocoa-colored skin, tasting the friendly attendant's blood. She drank for several seconds, filling her mouth and her stomach before she withdrew. The marks were so small, hardly noticeable as she brushed her thumb over them. The natural coagulant in her saliva stopped the flow of blood, and the attendant went on her way casually, as if nothing strange at all had happened. She took a quick look in the mirror, smiling and rinsing the red blood from between her teeth. Yes, she had changed during her time with the colony. She was immortal, unbound, and now engaged to a man she'd never met until last week, who sat sleeping peacefully on the plane next to her. She made her way back to her seat, replaying the trip, the events, the surprises, and her death all over again. Roan was still asleep, as she knew he would be. She slipped into her seat and put her earbuds back in, letting the gentle music drown out the emotions and the sounds around her. Amelia Wilson had been found at the local hospital in Houston, Texas, when she was just a baby, sitting outside the sliding glass doors with no note and no clue of who might have left her. 2 years ago, she took a chance and ordered the DNA kit, sending it in and waiting, scrolling through distant matches until an alert popped up on her phone one day. Phoebe Alora, listed as close family, biological mother, location, Perth, Australia. She frantically opened the app and paused on the empty message. There were so many things she wanted to ask, to say. So many things she'd imagined for so many years, and now she was drawing a blank. She was still deep in thought as another alert sounded on her phone, showing up on the screen. A message sent just now. She stared at the phone, looking at the waiting message as the tip of her finger hovered just above the icon. She pressed it, watching the short message appear on her phone. "We've been searching for you," it said. A shiver ran down Amelia's spine as she read and reread the message, thinking of how to respond. So many questions sprang from one sentence. Who were we, and why were they looking for her? Find out. June 26th, 2021. Garkain, the first book in the Uluru Legacy series, goes on pre-sale January 1st, 2021.